Good evening, folks. Welcome to the deliberative meeting for the town for 2014. Have some housekeeping items. There are some people from out of town who most likely will want to speak. And maybe when I announce these people, if it could maybe just be recognized, if maybe everybody doesn't know you. So it's Fred Moody, Town Manager, Karen Noyes, Finance Director, Cecile Stubbings, Welfare Director, Brian, is it Patno?
Yep.
Okay. Transfer Station Manager, Ryan Glass, Recreation Director. Ryan here?
Still be here.
Okay. William Brusso, Fire Lieutenant. He's being, or we're asking you to give him permission. William Sargent, Equipment Operator. Yeah, there he is. And others, I think there was another person. I can find it. Did I give it to you? I think it's Carol Zangler. Okay, the Littleton Area Senior Center. Anybody know of anyone else that would need permission to speak this evening? Okay. So this is the first session. The first session of the, let me just get this right here. Hereby notified to meet for the first deliberative session of the annual town meeting. We held at the Littleton High School cafeteria, Littleton, New Hampshire, on the 4th day of July, 2014, being Tuesday at 6 o'clock in the evening. First deliberative session will consist of explanation, discussion, and debate of each of the following warrant articles, and will afford those voters who are present the opportunity to propose, to debate, and adopt amendments to each warrant article, except those that are articles whose wording is prescribed by state law. And then the second session, notified to meet for the second session at the annual town meeting to elect town officers by official ballot and to vote by official ballot on the warrant articles that, as they may have been amended at the first session, that's tonight, to be held at the Fire Department, 230 West Main Street, Littleton, New Hampshire, on the 11th day of March, 2014, being held at 8 o'clock in the forenoon. The polls are to open at 8 a.m. and may not close prior to 7 p.m. to act upon the following. Now, the first article... Excuse me? Oh, yes, Eddie, thank you. We need permission, I can anticipate that, need permission to have those folks that were mentioned approved by the body.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any objections, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Eddie. So Article 1, to choose necessary officers, including one moderator, 2-year term, one selectman for a 3-year term, supervisor of the checklist, 6-year term, one park commissioner, 3-year term, 3 library trustees, 3-year term, one library trustee for a 2-year term, and one trustee of the trust funds for a 3-year term. So, we have a pretty extensive warrant, and we want to give everybody an opportunity to speak. You do need to have your card. Could you hold your card up? Make sure everybody's got a card. And you folks can look around. We probably do, if we need to, we can do a standing vote if need be. We do invite participation, comments, questions. That's the purpose of the meeting. Ask that you would prepare your comments a little bit ahead of time, if you can, and then Try not to get involved with a debate, cross-debate. If you wish to speak, there's a microphone in the center. Line up. That'll save some time. Try to limit yourself and not have to be requested to wrap it up. That's easier, more effective. Maintain the comments around the issues. That's helpful. No personal comments. It doesn't usually add to the meeting. So, is there anything that I've neglected to say? Any announcements anybody wants to make? Comments? Okay, so Article 2 on the livestock ordinance. And is that going to be, we're going to see that on the screen? We're going to bring those up, Fred? Okay, so you want to read it? Okay. All right, no, go ahead. Article 2, and it's Maggie Seymour who will take that article.
You'll notice that anything having to do with garbage or animals, I always get.
Sure.
Or recycle. So Article 2 is a zoning regulation ordinance. By law, it has to come right at the beginning of this meeting. And this is an article that was put forward by the planning board, mostly because chickens had been left out of our zoning ordinance by accident. And so this basically is to reinsert chickens into the zoning ordinance and to establish some regulations about keeping livestock. Article 2 says to see if the town will vote to amend the Littleton zoning ordinance by adding poultry to the definition of livestock, by clarifying that the grazing, care, raising, or keeping of livestock shall be a permitted use in the rural zone, and by special exception in the R1, R1A, R2, commercial, industrial, and mixed-use zoning districts, and by established detailed minimum standards governing this use. This clarification will replace any current mention of the raising of farm animals or livestock in Article 4, Sections 4.02.01 through 4.02.07. The complete text of the proposed amendment is available for review at the town office and the town website at www.townoflittleton.org, and copies will be available the day of the voting. The following question will appear on the official election ballot. Are you in favor of the adoption of Amendment Number 1 for the existing town zoning ordinance as proposed by the Planning Board? The amendment adds poultry to the definition of livestock, clarifies that the grazing, care, raising, or keeping of livestock is a permitted use in the R1, R2, is a permitted use in the rural zone and by special exception in the R1, R1A, R2, commercial, industrial, and mixed-use zoning districts, and establishes detailed minimum standards for this use by enacting new sections 6.12 and 6.12.01 and 6.12.02. I am here to answer any questions that you might have.
What we'll do is, we'll be sure that we get it on the floor for discussion.
Okay.
And are you moving that? And we need to have a second.
Yes, I move that we put this on the floor for discussion.
And then a second. Okay, it's moved and seconded. Do you want to speak
I will.
first? Okay.
No, I don't want to speak first, but
Oh, you don't? You want to speak, answer questions? Okay, that's good.
is that okay?
Sure it is. And if I didn't say it before, you need to announce your name before you begin to speak, if you don't mind.
My name is Dan. This ordinance should really be, as far as the naming of animals, should be really stricken, because the term livestock, I've looked in the dictionary, I've looked in Black's Law Dictionary also, the term livestock covers all those animals. So if you wanted to exclude those animals, that's something you should list, but they're already included in the thing, so unless you're changing the ordinance about fences or something like that, it's really superfluous.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Linda?
I'm curious about the goats and the pigs. Why have 4 for an acre for pigs and only 2 for goats? But up here it says no livestock shall be kept on lots smaller than 2 acres. So does that mean if someone out in rural Route 2 wanted pigs, they couldn't have it if they only have 1 acre?
Yes, if you're, well, in rural 2, in R2,
Yes.
the pasture that's available to the animals is what they're talking about in that, where you're talking about how many animals per acre. That's not the lot size, that's the
Oh.
pasture size.
Okay. Well, what I'm concerned about, and I don't want to name names, but you know what I'm speaking to, is that I can't imagine if a neighbor had 4 pigs, and my neighbor had 1 pig, and that was a lot to be downwind from. And
You had a neighbor with pigs, Linda?
yeah, I did. And so I just thought that's huge. So I wondered how you're differentiating between the goats and the pigs. What made you have 2 for one and 4 for the other?
Well, I mean, technically, I think that there was a chart that we looked at, and we sort of went through it and decided whether it made sense or not, and that we didn't have an extended discussion about the merits of one animal versus another animal for this.
Okay.
So, Linda, it also specifies that animals have to be kept away from property lines, and that, I mean, it's not just what's in this little block.
So we could have discussions about it. I just think 4 pigs on that lot up above us would have been huge, and I wouldn't be in favor of that. 2 pigs I could see, they like company, but 4 that's a lot.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Is that it?
I don't know, let's see. Further questions? Further questions, comments? So the questions have been noted, comments have been noted. Are you ready for the question? Question would be, are you in favor of placing Article 2 as presented on the ballot for March 11th voting? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
Okay, there was one, we'll just make a note of that. One obsession, or one negative vote. So Article 3.
Article 3, Department of Public Works Building Replacement, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,200,000 for the purpose of constructing a new public works highway building on land owned by the town at West Main Street, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $1,200,000 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, and to further authorize the selectmen to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes to determine the rate of interest thereon. Furthermore, to authorize the selectmen to recycle, sell, or trade any materials from the deconstruction of the old building. Furthermore, to authorize the selectmen to apply for, accept, and expend any matching funds, grants, or donations that may become available for such purpose. No tax impact in 2014. Recommended by the selectmen 3-0, recommended by the budget committee 4-3. I move that this article be open to discussion.
Okay, do we have a second? Second for that?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded.
Okay, and we have...
Those in favor, say aye.
right. Those in favor, say aye.
Well,
Okay, for discussion.
for discussion, that's all.
This is not for the passing of it.
Right.
That's right. Okay. And I'd like to have Brody Toot. He is the chair of the building committee. So if he'd like to give a short presentation.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here tonight just to speak briefly on the new highway garage. Just to let everyone know, on 6 o'clock on Thursday at the highway garage, we're going to have a full informative session. So if anyone chooses to get some more information on the building, I welcome you to come then. As I stated, I just wanted to give some quick notes about the committee. The committee's built about 10 residents in town. It was formed early summer of this year. And we reviewed the current structure versus replacement. We came quickly to a determination that we recommend to replace it on quite a few different things that came about. The major portion of it was the cost to rehabilitate the current structure. It's going to be next to the same amount of money to rehab it as to build a new building with our current design. The new layout is going to be roughly 30% larger than the current facility. It's going to use the same footprint, be built in the same spot. And what the committee really focused on was a needs-wants basis. In October, we actually kind of went back to the drawing board and scratched out a lot of the things right off the top due to the fact of the cost. We understand that the cost is the emphasis, but we want a building that's going to be planned for the future. I was notified by the Department of Public Works Director this evening that there is some life safety improvements that will need to go into the existing structure if this does not pass. And some of those include carbon monoxide evacuation systems, and we can speak more to that on Thursday. So our biggest focus is we don't want to put bad money after bad property. We want to spend money in an effective manner to provide a building that's going to last, as well as a large piece of it that we looked at was efficiency. We worked with Tony Alacqua on the Energy Conservation Committee to build the building as efficient as possible. So at this point, I guess we'll open it for questions.
So everybody's seeing, do you want to go through the slides or questions? Okay, first, please.
My name is Dan. I have 2 points. This is a larger building. You said 30% larger, and we've never been given the chance of, and we should have had actually 2 things on the ballot. One is a replacement for the exact size, which would be less cost than the $1,200, and then the $1,200. So the taxpayer really hasn't been given the choice on that. Also, it was said that there's no tax impact this year, and that's a little misleading. The tax impact will come in 2015 because that's when the first payment is due.
I can't speak to the tax impact directly. Perhaps Fred could. However, the size of the building, currently there's approximately 6 bays of equipment in a 4-bay garage. So that's really our focus. Vehicles are parked very close to one another for not to mention just safety, ease of our future. That's really our focus on building a larger building.
Right, I understand that, but the taxpayers should have been given the choice between the $1.2 million building and a building of the exact same size to replace that. It's that they weren't.
Rudy Gelsey, 2584 North Littleton Road. My concern about this particular...
Rudy, you might want to speak right into the mic. I don't know if we can all hear you.
My concern about this article, it's that $1,200,000 is kind of, in this particular stage of, the way the town has so many debts that they gotta be paid eventually for next year. I personally think, I went to look at the building. Yes, eventually we need a new building. But in this state, today, I would suggest to the people of Littleton to vote no. For the only reason, because $1.2 million, it's a lot of money to put on top all the debts that the town has already. And, you know, like the other gentleman say, you know, tax impact is zero, it's not zero. You know, people, they gotta know that. And also, I went to look at the building, like I said, and I think with the job that they did last year to repair the building, it's kind of, in case stay one more year, at least 2 more years, before everything is, you know, it being kind of, you can't spend the tax money. You gotta ease out a little bit, and then probably, you know, we're gonna build a new building in about a year or 2 years. Thank you.
Okay. Next, please. It might help just to line up if you feel like you want to speak.
I would have, but I just thought of my remark.
Oh, okay.
Skylar Sweet. Rudy's right. It does need replacing. My argument about doing it now versus later is to take you back to the police station. We eventually built a new police station. I think it was 5 or 6 years after the first proposal, and we built it for the amount of money that the first proposal was. The only difference is 2,000 square feet less than we wanted.
Bruce Hadlock. I went down and I looked at the building, and I was at the last meeting, and I listened to the proposal. People have worked hard pertaining to what they do. At some point, I'm not disagreeing that the garage needs to be replaced. I'm not convinced that your committee in turn did all the studies that were necessary to be able to do pertaining to this building. One, if the voters vote for this, it requires a 2/3 vote. Am I right, Fred?
3/5.
Yeah. You got to have 3/5 of a vote of the people that vote have to vote for it to make it in the affirmative to go forward with it, number one. I'd like to ask you some questions, Brody. Do you know what it costs to tear the building down?
That cost is associated already in the excavation, and it's included. I don't have a direct figure in front of me.
That's what I figured.
I believe the figure, and I don't know if Fred has it in front of him, but was...
George, I think George.
George may be able to speak to the... But we had a breakdown of the plumbing, the erection of the new structure, the site work. And in the site work portion of it was not just reconstruction, but deconstruction.
I'm asking what it costs to take it down.
I don't want to tell you a number that I'm
And
not...
what it costs to take up the concrete.
I don't have the number in front of me.
Let me tell you why I'm asking this.
Hold on just a second. George, have you got the number?
I have a ballpark number, and in fairness to the contractor, this is an estimate given by one subcontractor, so I'm kind of lenient on how much information I want to give out, because there will be other subcontractors bidding this project if it passes, and I want everything to stand on an upward and fair playground. The demolition estimate is around $28,000. That includes building, concrete, preparation for a new concrete foundation.
Thank you, George. It's my belief what should be done is, yes, to build a new building. But it's my belief what should be done is to leave the basic structure of what you have in existence on it. Do not tear down a building that would just cost you $28,000. The building that could be used would be the concrete slab, as well as leaving the present structure as a building for storage, for cold storage. You've got, on the left-hand side, you have the offices, You have a lot of places which you could use for storage of equipment, tires, or anything else in there. The fire department could use it, the police department, as well as the fact that the other portion of the building could be used. I'm going to use some of the equipment that you don't use. If you have a sander, you have a big truck that's a sander, that vehicle in turn will never be used in the wintertime. So you could put it underneath there. You could put a grader underneath there. On a grader could be plugged in. Trucks, if they want to put them in, I'm not a believer in what they want to do by putting all the trucks in, because I think around the country today, these trucks are all plugged in. But consequently, if the town so desires to operate in that present condition, it seems like it's an awful waste of a building that could be used as a facility on that same site. If you moved forward and built a lesser building at a lesser than $1.2 million, you would, number one, you'd save the $28,000 on it, and you'd have storage facilities still available as far as that part is concerned. Yes, you might have to spend money on maintenance or something of this nature on it as well. But if you shut the water off, you still have the building. And if you build a new building and you went less in square footage, it's some of the things, if you build a 12,000 square foot building, it's a requirement by the state standards that you have to have a sprinkler system. If you build under that, you don't have to on it too. That in itself, what I got told, was around another $28,000. So there's, in itself, there's another probably $60,000 you could save. If you don't need that bigger building, you just move it forward on it, build on a new slab on the thing on it, build a new structure, and you build it in according, and you leave the other building there, which it's a shame to take down a building, because at the same time, I heard the last time we were at a meeting that they still want to go through and have a building for sand and other things on it from that part. So I guess I'm not a believer in what I see that you guys have come up with a proposal to build on the same present structure. I would like to see that building stay in existence, utilize part of the facilities, save the cost of building it, and build a smaller structure that would save you some more money. Thank you.
I believe George is going to comment on that.
Thank you, Mr. Hadlock. I'll try to answer what I think were three different questions.
Your name?
Oh, yeah, I'm George McNamara, I'm sorry. Three different questions. The first question pertained to keeping the building as a cold storage. The main reason we're here today, folks, is because an engineering study was done by Provan and Lober, and they determined that the existing building had a roof load capacity of 15 pounds per square foot. The region we live in, you're required by current code to have a 75 pound per square foot load rating on your structure. That building has survived all these years because it was designed not to hold the heat in. One of the things that started this whole thing in process was the Energy Conservation Committee. Last year, the town spent $15,000 on number 2 oil to heat the building. Since then, we put in a pellet boiler. We just refilled the pellets, and given the estimate of the usage we've had in the last 3 months, we're looking at about $8,000 to heat that building. So that's a step in the right direction, a savings of $7,000. But to keep that building as a cold storage is impossible where we live, because once we receive a snow load on that building, if you take the time to read Provan and Lober's report, they speculate catastrophic disaster and the building collapsing. They say it is inevitable. And in their report, their recommendation was as soon as feasible to replace the building. Now, one of the reasons Brody mentioned we went back to the drawing board was because I've been sitting where you're sitting for the last 20 years, and I've been seeing project after project come back 2, 3, 4 years until it wears the voters down and something passes. Our original proposal was around 1.5 with about 14,000 square feet and a lot of things we really didn't need. So we went to see some contractors. We held a couple meetings. We had 9 different contractors in the North Country come around to give us ideas. Out of those, we whittled it down to 3 contractors, and 2 of them had basically the same idea, which we're presenting tonight. It's a highly functional building that meets our needs, but it's very economical. It's $94.60 a square foot to construct this building. We're in an economic depression, downturn, whatever you want to call it, in the North Country. I don't see this project ever coming around for this type of a sale. Now, are there things on this building we could cut costs on? There most certainly are. The doors you see on this building are passive solar doors. Yeah, they're expensive, but they also, according to other facilities that have these doors, fire stations and highway garages we've spoken to, they heat their building 80% during the daytime hours. One of the garages says they shut the heat off in the day. Another thing are the solar panels. There's one up back. 3 inches of urethane sandwiched in a metal skin. That is more expensive than your standard pre-engineered building, which has a metal skin and an insulation up there that gets wet, and the moisture emits through the vapor barrier, and then you have nothing. So yeah, there are some things we've looked at to make it a better building, yes, but it's still very economical. Referring to plugging the trucks in, there is not a garage that I'm aware of that does highway maintenance in the North Country that does not store their vehicles inside. And the reason we store them inside are many. Number one, if we're called in because it's snowing, it's freezing rain, the roads need to be cleaned. We don't want to spend 15, 20 minutes cleaning the truck off. Number two, the trucks are stored inside, loaded with salt and loaded with sand. So the response time is, the driver comes in, he goes to his rig, gives it a quick inspection, starts it up, drives out, treats the roads. The third and the most critical reason they're stored inside at approximately 50 degrees in the evening is the hydraulic fluid tanks. These tanks and these vehicles at 5 to 0 degrees take 2 to 3 hours before we can pick the plow up on them if they're left outdoors. And those are the 3 major reasons. I think I've answered all your questions, Mr. Hadlock. If I forgot one, I'd be glad to.
I'd like to respond, but I think Tony's next.
My name is Tony Hadlock, and I'm going to be short and sweet on this. The building's fallen down. I take some responsibility for this warrant article, the Energy Conservation Committee. When we were looking to insulate and so forth, it was pretty easy as a layman, somebody who knows nothing about buildings, to look around, and if it was your house, you would have ran the other way and got out from under it, because it's gonna fall down. The other thing is, I think you all have known me for a long time, and I'm a believer in needs and not wants. I firmly believe this is an absolute need. It is not a want. If it was a want, or I even suspected it of being a want, I would be here saying don't. And I did some ciphering, and it's not going to be accurate. But over a period of 50 years, the other building's over 50 years old, the energy savings with the doors that were mentioned, the different lighting and so on, you're going to save $500,000 in 50 years, which is one hell of a chunk of the price of that building. So I urge everybody to vote for it. Thank you.
Bruce Hadlock again?
Go ahead, yeah.
I watched, or I read through like Probin and Lober and stuff like this. One of the things that I've observed is there is not an engineering company anywhere that will come through and say everything's safe. They're more concerned about their ability to be able to not be sued for something that comes through and says that there's a fault for it. This building, in turn, if it was left up there in existence, would not be heated on it as far as that part. And eventually, you still may have to make some structural changes to it to support the thing. But where could you get that kind of a building as it, for storage purposes, you have everything left over on it for not a big amount of money? And I'm not saying not build another garage. I just don't believe in the fact that destroying something that has been used, still could be used. It wouldn't be heated as far as that part. And it won't cost a lot of maintenance pertaining to it on it. And the engineering is that it is not going to fall down, and it isn't ready to fall down at the present time. Thank you.
Okay.
Brian Ward. I support this bond issue. I think the committee has done a phenomenal job. And I think this is when Littleton is at its best. The selectmen could have taken an approach of top-down, of where they got together with department heads and said, this is our bond issue, this is what we're going to do, and then after the fact, we'll put a building committee to put the final details on. Instead, they empowered a group of citizens, urged those citizens to work with people that knew the building, Larry Jackson, other department heads that have worked, and they come up with a plan. I asked, I'm not on the committee, and I never attend any of the meetings. I read the stories in the papers and saw the presentations. Last July, I asked Fred, I happened to be speaking about something else, and I said, what's the cost look like? And he said between $120 to $125 a square foot. This committee did what they're supposed to, which is looking out for the taxpayers' interest by working this so that they got it down to, I think, George, you said 94?
96.
96? 96, 460 for the square foot cost. So they worked the cost down. Instead of 1.5 million, it's 1.2. They then got, for that particular price, they got a reputable contractor to give a guaranteed price. Those of us who have been through bond votes in the past have had drugstore prices that have come in, given to the voters, and then it turns out that the project can't be built for what has been put before the voters. This price has been guaranteed. The energy efficiency, last year the town voted 68%. I know Dan will correct me that it was not the whole town voting, but those who did participate put the energy, the pellet boiler in, and this boiler will play it. And I think one of the other most important things was that this committee recognized the good work that had previously been done. In 1957, the town paid $1,000 for 3.48 acres of land. The next year they built this garage. This garage served us for 56 years. However, it's been stated this was built during a whole different time period of energy costs. We're in a whole different world. They were probably paying 10 to 15 cents a gallon. It's obviously a lot more. And then the last thing that I think we really should take into consideration of what they didn't know back then that we know now, and that's the carbon monoxide issue there. If you go into that building, the fumes of 56 years are throughout that place. And no one should have to work under that environment again. And the equipment that they put into this is not lavish, it is health safety, and the employees deserve to work in a safe environment. And within that budgetary framework that they've done a great job. And I certainly hope everyone will support it, because this is when Littleton's at its best, with good community participation, employee input, and selectmen leadership. Thank you.
We're going to kind of let other people speak first, and then before we repeat. Yeah, I don't know if, okay, go ahead, Greg. I thought he wanted to speak. So.
My name is Greg Wren. I'm on the committee too, and I just wanted to add something to Brody's comments about the safety of the garage. This garage is what they call a drive-through. You can't tell on there's 6 doors in the front, and I believe 4 in the back. So what it's meant to be is a drive-through, so the trucks can drive in, open the door, drive in, and pull out. Right now, they have to back in, correct? So what we found is it tends to create a safety issue. Somebody has to be in the back guiding him, the person in, so that could be a potential safety issue. The other thing that we discussed on the committee was if you looked at a pickup today, or one of the F-550s that they're using, and even the larger trucks, they're much bigger than what they had back in the 50s, 60s. So what the problem is the width of the truck and the plows trying to get into the current doors, and these doors are wider to accommodate the larger equipment.
Anyone else? Oh, yeah, Tom.
I just have a quick comment. Doesn't matter what we're supporting.
You want to
not
state
gonna support.
your name, please?
Tom Ock. But we ought to support it with facts, and this is a nitpicky comment, but when George tells us it takes 2.5 to 3 hours to lift a plow, we run logging equipment all winter long, and if it took us 2.5 to 3 hours to get a hydraulic system warmed up, we'd be out of business. And they're the same systems, they're the same pumps. You know, don't use a fear tactic to try to put something through. This is a good idea, this is a good project, but stick to the facts.
No, just, we'll let you back up here, Bruce. Anyone else wish to speak who hasn't spoken? Okay, go ahead.
I know Brian Ward led you on to think the fact that there's no air control. And I believe less than, 3, maybe 5 years ago on it, was it they put in that new, 3 years ago? 3 years ago, they put in a complete air circulating system to be able to have these people breathe in there as far as working conditions. And I think one of the ones that really was addressed to was Larry Jackson. I think he had a problem as a result of it too. Now, nobody spoke to it that this equipment might be used in the new one on it either. Even if you left the other building like I'd like to, you certainly wouldn't need that, because you're still not talking about working in a building. But consequently, Brian Ward's leading you to believe that this is not safe. Well, this has been addressed, we paid for it, and it was installed for the people, and it's very possible it could be used again.
Certainly, I just want to address that anything that has any salvage value that can go into the new facility is going in. I'm not for sure about the air handling, but I can allow you the 2-post lift that lifts all the vehicles, that's going in. They're not looking to buy a lot of the new equipment. All the existing equipment from the old garage will go into the new garage.
Again, I'm back to, even if you took the building down, don't take the slab out and move it. A slab, when you park vehicles on it or using it, could be an awful lot of money. Putting it up and tearing the slab down, I really don't think that the study went into it correctly. I'm not saying not to build a new building, and I think the pricing factor is a fairly good price. But I certainly would want to leave, I would prefer to build something in front, let it continue to operate, let the people operate until you got a new one. And if you did decide to take the building down, I would still leave the slab on it. You'd be surprised what you can park and what you'd use that concrete slab for out of it pertaining to a construction site, pertaining to it the same as the operating one. But I personally would leave the actual whole structure up out of it. Thank you.
Okay, all right.
Rudy Gelson. It was nice to hear of this gentleman over here, talk about the engineering aspect of the building, which eventually, is going to be something that everybody's going to be, really excited about. One thing that they don't talk about, it's the impact that $1.2 million we have on the population of Littleton. The spending of this money eventually is going to hit some people that they cannot pay more taxes. We're talking about taxes over there. What we're talking about here, it's not the building. We know that the building is got to be built. Maybe not this year, next year, or the year after. Yes, but you got to have the money. You can't just squeeze blood from a stone. People in Littleton, I talk with quite a few of them. They complain about taxes. And you gentlemen know better than I do that if we give you the okay to build this building, in 2015 the taxes are going to go up. It's, that's the main reason why we are here. Yes, we need a building, but we are here to talk about the people of Littleton, the tax impact, the people that we try to take money from them, and we cannot do that. We gotta wait. we gotta wait at least a year, and I'm gonna tell all the people from Littleton, to my strength, that to vote no for this project. Thank you very much.
Okay, anyone else who hasn't spoken, wishes to speak? You?
Mr.
Okay, all right. All right.
Possible.
Fred Moody. What you have on the screen here and in your voter's guide is the simplified debt schedule. And what it shows is that in 2014, we pay off the landfill closure and the fire department ladder truck. So in 2015, those two debts are completed. That will drop our annual tax impact from $1.70 to about $1.40 for the total debt. By adding in the new TPW garage, we're estimating, well, that's rounded to 12 cents. I think we're saying 13 cents, but so that'll then, we'll see a decrease of $235,000 from 2014 to 2015, and that $235,000 would then be replaced by about a $95,000 debt payment for the new highway garage. So those are the numbers as to what the cost of the new garage would be going forward into 2015 and beyond.
Following up, Brian Ward again, following up what Fred had said, I think the timing of this is why, one of the reasons why you'd want to do that. Because what we do is we pay off the landfill closure bill, which we paid, I had a $1.47 million bond to close the landfill. We now have green space with that. By funding it this year rather than waiting this year, we basically are able to slide that capital expense into the bond indebtedness. And one of the key things you want to do is, as a town or a school, is manage that so you don't have spikes. And this, by doing it this year, you will not have a spike. If you waited a year from now, there'd probably be a taxpayer coming in and said, why didn't you do it last year when there wouldn't have been a spike? So it makes all the sense in the world to put it in this year to prevent the spike. And Rudy's comments about concerns for taxpayers, totally appropriate. But if you wait 1 year, you're going to have a spike. If you do it this year, you'll replace a bond expense that's expiring with one that we can then cover that expense without adding much to the tax rate. So I think the selectmen for leadership for bringing this forward is good government.
Okay, anyone who has not spoken who wishes to? Are you ready for the question? Yeah. So the question is, are you ready to put it on the ballot? And that would be Article 3 as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
Okay, that is an affirmative vote. We'll go on the ballot for March 11th.
Moderator,
Oh, yes, please.
I'd like to make a motion to reconsider and urge everyone to vote no. The reason you do that is so that if the meeting goes late, the people who made the decision today, who are here, will be the only people that will be making those decisions. We're here for the discussion.
Right, and that's a point of order, and I think it's appropriate. In other words, once it's been, once the article has been discussed, that it will not be reconsidered for this meeting. Is that the point?
That's correct.
Okay, and that's a motion. Second?
Wait, I don't understand what you just said.
Well, what he's saying is that later on in the meeting, it's a point of order, actually, and it's appropriate. In other words, once something has been decided, that if the meeting votes, it can't be brought up later to reconsider the same article.
It cannot be brought up.
You can, no, and
Is that what you said, cannot or
cannot. Well, if we were running by strict parliamentary procedure, it would have to be brought up by somebody who voted in favor of it. So it's an appropriate point so that we clarify that any article, I assume that you're talking about, any article cannot be reconsidered later on in the meeting once it's been discussed. And so there's a motion and second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no?
No.
Okay. All right, on to Article 4.
Thank you, Gerald.
You're welcome.
Article 4 is the reconstruction, repaving, and upgrading of Pleasant Street sidewalk. Article 4 reads, to see if the town will vote, oh, I guess we need a motion to
Yeah. Well, no, you're going to read it.
read it first.
And
Sorry.
then we'll have a motion to put it on the floor.
I'm already confused by this meeting.
I'll try to help you, Mike.
Thank you. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $113,370 for the purpose of upgrading and improving a portion of the Pleasant Street sidewalk from Oak Hill Avenue to Pine Street, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $77,370 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, and to further authorize the selectmen to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and to determine the rate of interest thereon, and to further authorize the withdrawal of $36,000 from the parking meter special revenue fund toward this purpose. Further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $27,000 for the first year's loan payment. Further, to authorize the selectmen to apply for, accept, and expend any matching funds, grants, or donations that may become available for such purpose. This one requires a 3/5 ballot vote.
And then you're moving to get it on
And
the floor.
I would like to move to get this on the floor.
And we need a second.
Second.
Second. Move made and second. And so the procedure is then, are you okay? All those in favor of getting it on the floor, say yes. Or aye. Those opposed, no. And then we can discuss it. Are you ready for that?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to present something first? No?
Your question? Maybe I'll respond to that.
All right, okay.
Yeah, I think there's a slide, maybe we could put up the slide that shows the condition of Pleasant Street. So this is the road we're talking about, and I'm here to speak in favor of this article. Ron Bolt, sorry. I've been a member of the Safe Routes to School Committee, essentially since its beginning, which has been several years now. And what this whole program is about is to try to encourage children to either walk or take their bicycles to school rather than being driven to school by their parents. The reason we're encouraging people to do that is for two reasons. One is to help fight childhood obesity and get the little darlings out there walking in the mornings. And secondly, for the environmental impact of all those cars sitting on Union Street waiting to make the turn into the circle there to drop the children off. So there are two reasons that the Safe Routes to School program has been pushed in Littleton. The two priorities that were set when we went forward and asked for this grant was to do what we could to modify the traffic pattern on Union Street in front of Lakeway, which was pretty horrendous, and the traffic light is in the wrong location. There are many problems that cause backups and safety issues. So that was the number one priority. The number two priority was to make some repairs to this section of Pleasant Street. I'll also mention that the lower portions of Pleasant Street have already been repaired and upgraded. So this section is not. This section is very heavily traveled by the students going to school. As part of the program, I had the opportunity to escort the children on Wednesdays when they walk from Remick Park to Lakeway, and this is the route that they travel. And as any of you that have been involved with small children, they don't like to walk single file lightly, particularly in the morning on the way to school. They want to be 2 abreast, 3 abreast. And as you can see, that's a very hazardous situation on a road that's on a sidewalk that's in this condition. So again, I want to encourage people to give this very serious consideration. Hopefully it will pass. The last thing I'll do is mention an analogous situation 2 years ago on South Street where the sidewalk was similarly unpassable. I would suggest that Pleasant Street is probably more heavily traveled the sidewalk. It's just as dangerous, and considering that our children are going up and down that street, is probably, for safety purposes, even more important. 2 years ago, when South Street was done, it was almost exactly the same amount of money, $130,000. That was paid out entirely from taxation. On the project we're talking about today, on Pleasant Street, we've got two other sources of funds, the parking meter fund and the residual from the grant that won't be spent on the traffic situation. So $50,000 approximately is already in hand for a $137,000 project. So anyway, I just wanted to put a pitch in for supporting this article. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next.
I am Dan. I'd just like to bring to everybody's attention, this is a comment, that 3 people on the Budget Committee, after listening to the pros and cons, voted against that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Bruce Allen. I'm actually in favor of fixing the sidewalks. I'm not in favor of what was proposed by speaking at the last meeting, that they're going to rip this up and that they're going to put down asphalt. If you notice here, they had concrete. The concrete that's been there has been there a number of years. And if you look at the wall, if you rip that up, you've got to do something about the wall on the left-hand side. This is up by the park, by the way, and it certainly should be fixed and replaced. But I'm not in favor of what the proposal came in from whoever designed it, to put it in and just have asphalt. It should be a poured concrete, and today, concrete can be acquired in small sections out of it. They pour them on site, they bring them in, and you put it back in. And I think it would be a smarter, longer-term investment than it would be to do it the way they're proposing. Thank you.
Okay.
George McNamara. One of the reasons we selected asphalt for the topping and not concrete would be the corrosion that occurs to the concrete using the salt to maintain the sidewalks. And the other main reason is the demolition of the concrete is rather expensive. The product itself is much more expensive. And it's much easier, as you can see, with some of the sidewalks the town has redone in the last 5 or 6 years with a nice granite curb, a couple inches of asphalt, 5 feet wide. If the asphalt fails, as you see in this picture in front, if that was purely an asphalt sidewalk, you could go in there with a small piece of machinery, peel the asphalt up, regrade the gravel, and have it repaved. Here, the demolition cost, as you can see, is going to be rather extensive with the concrete. That's the reason we went with it. It's less money and easier to maintain.
Thank you.
Brian Ward, since 2008, the town has spent, golly, between $900,000 and $1 million on improving sidewalks. South Street, Willow Street, all across Redington Street. All neighborhoods in the town have been paid. This is the first time that we've had actually opportunity to obtain a grant to do it. And I think if you look at the Pleasant Street one, and by the way, the highway crew did a nice job fixing that this summer to extend the life so that we can finally replace it. But I think if you look at where Ralph Harris lives on South Street, that's an elevated sidewalk. And I think you would see the similar construction that they would do to what's going to be done here. And I think for us, the hard work that the committee did to apply for the grant, Ray Burton was once again very instrumental in getting the funding for it. Fred has shepherded it through the bureaucracy for, what, 3 years, Fred?
3 years.
When Fred got here, it was on his desk, and he's hoping to move it off it finally, that this would be an opportunity through the hard work of the committee to get a grant and to have someone else outside of just the Littleton taxpayer to improve sidewalks. And as you can see, this is a sidewalk that is in disrepair. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak? Ready for the question? All those in favor of placing this article on the ballot for the March 11th election, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
Okay, it is a vote in the affirmative. Article 5.
Okay, Article 5, purchase of highway truck replacement. To see if the town will vote to authorize the selectmen to enter into a 3-year purchase lease agreement, a loan, in the amount of $141,613 over a term of 36 months for the purpose of purchasing a 2014 or newer heavy dump truck with new wing and plow as a replacement for one of the older heavy dump trucks in service in the Littleton Highway Department, and to raise and appropriate $35,000 to be taken from the undesignated unreserved fund balance toward the purchase of said vehicle, and to authorize the selectmen to trade or sell the replaced vehicle and worn wing and plow. Further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $37,205 for the first year's loan payment and setup costs. This lease agreement contains a non-appropriation escape clause. Majority vote, let's see, tax impact is 5 cents. Recommended by the selectmen 3-0, recommended by the budget committee 5-4. I move that this article be opened for discussion.
Okay, second. Okay. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Do you want to discuss, do you want to comment on it first, or just
Well,
field the
you can take a look
question?
at the...
Ready for questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right.
If I can't answer them, George can.
Okay. Questions, comments from the floor?
My name is Dan. Is the plow itself, the scoop in the front, is that, could that be taken and put on the new vehicle?
That would be a George question.
Or does it have to be replaced also?
George McNamara, the plow that's on the front of that truck is over 10 years old, and it has a lot of maintenance that needs to go into it. At this time, we would like to replace it.
Could I make one other further comment on?
Of course.
My name's Bill Sargent, Littleton Highway Department, 16 years. I used to drive a similar vehicle to that before I had gotten a 2007 International. The front push plow on that is what they call a fixed plow. Since 2006 or 5 it was, we went with a directional plow. Like you'll see the small trucks around town that they can angle it either way. And that's what we're replacing onto the front of our larger trucks now to promote efficiency and time to get around to clean up our intersections and everything, Dan.
Okay, good. Thank you. Someone else? Oh. Okay.
Just so everyone's aware, this truck that we're proposing to replace at the Highway Department would not be the truck that is traded in. The truck at the current Highway Department would be given to the, sold to the transfer station, and the transfer station truck is the one that would be traded in. This is a picture of the bed of the truck at the transfer station. It's in very, very rough shape. Transfer station manager is here if you have any questions to about the veracity of that statement. He can answer those questions. But so we will take the highway truck, donate it to the transfer station, and then trade in the transfer station truck.
Okay, further questions, comments? Okay, the question is, are you ready for the question? All those in favor of placing Article 5 on the ballot for March 11th, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
Okay, the ayes have it. And Article 6.
Article 6 is the 2014 operating budget. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant, and as amended by vote of the first session for the purpose set forth therein, totaling $7,931,024. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $7,852,230, which is the same as last year, with certain adjustments required by previous actions of the town or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. I move that we put this article on the floor,
Second, okay.
and then
Get it on the floor. All in favor of doing that, say aye. Opposed, no.
And then I'd like to turn this discussion of the operating budget over to the town manager, Fred Moody.
Okay. Perfect.
We'll see whether the technology works, but thank you, Margie. A lot of thought has gone into the budget, and you can see there's about a 8-cent difference between the proposed and default budget. The handout that you picked up coming in and voter's guide will hopefully answer many of your questions. I will be going through it fairly quickly, so if you have any questions, perhaps hold them to the end. The approach for the operating budget is that while national economic indicators have shown improvement over last year, local economic prosperity is still lagging. Due to the prevailing economic challenges, the Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee have recommended the proposed 2014 operating budget. The following 2014 budget and warrant articles were carefully considered by the Board and the Budget Committee to maintain a consistent level of service while addressing some of the town's most pressing needs. Now we'll see whether the technical aspect works. The next slide is a comparison of, over the 3 years, of our major budget components, the operating budget, the outside funds, debt service, enterprise funds totals, and shows the increase or the decrease. The proposed 2014 budget is 2.1% over last year's budget. The default is 1.1% over last year's, and then the proposed 2014 is 1% over the default. We're still able to use some debt service, some proceeds from previously approved bonds. The Main Street project will be using $61,000 to help reduce that debt, and the Reddington Street Bridge project still has some principal amounts that we can use to retire the debt, but that'll be the last year on the Reddington Street Bridge project of $22,000. Excuse me. The default budget is different from the operating budget. If the default budget is approved, there'll be no wage adjustments for non-union employees. However, there will still be a step for the SCA union police employees, as that was approved last year by town meeting. We will also see an increase in the retirement system that you see there. We have an extra election this year that we just concluded last week for the Executive Council. But we were able to significantly reduce some legal expenses. We just are not seeing the level of legal challenges that we had in previous years. The workers' compensation insurance premium holiday, it has been reduced. We still will get some, but we see that as a $15,000 increase over the previous year's budget. The one-time purchase of the new vision server is excluded. And we have a contract with the Whitefield Airport, and that shows a $3,000 increase for their operating costs. We also have a contract with the Grafton County Dispatch. That's up $15,000 due to increased utilization and their general cost increases. Our ambulance costs, according to that contract, are down about 1.3%. Previously, we did not have a 40-hour-a-week Public Works supervisor. We do now, so that's reflected in the default budget. However, we were able to reduce the default by $25,000 due to the backhoe being paid off. Transfer station saw a $7,000 increase. We had some personnel changes there that required that to go up. And then we saw a $3,000, we will see a $3,000 decrease in debt service. These next few slides, I think I'm let you read and digest yourself. They're important components as to how we compiled the budget, but we can get down in the weeds very quickly in them, and I'm not sure most people here are interested in those details. Some of them we will be coming back to talk about on the AFSCME insurance, or AFSCME contract. When you're putting a budget together, you generally start with revenues. So I want to talk briefly about revenues. The revenues were adjusted up last year to reflect an increase in motor vehicle registrations, permits and fees, property rental, insurance refunds. But we are going to see 2014 revenues down slightly due to lower state aid expectations, transfer station revenues, and Parks and Recreation reflects a decrease in revenue due to the fact that their fund balance is not being used for projects. The next slide shows you in red where those decreases are highlighted from state revenue, departmental income, Parks and Recreation, and transfer station. Now the next three slides show the departmental expenses, and we've shown in red those line items that are either even or have gone down slightly. The black show departments that have gone up. And I'll be going through these in more detail as we move through this. Proposed wages and benefits by department is a pie chart that shows you what your tax dollars are going to pay for in the wages and benefits. And now we're getting into the detail, essentially departmental by departmental breakdown. So general government is our second floor offices, downtown, the town buildings, cemeteries, insurance, welfare, patriotic purposes, and conservation commission. The default is down 1.9%, and the proposed is up 1.27%. And that's because we have factored in a 2.5% pay adjustment for administrative staff. We've increased the select board out-of-pocket expenses by $800. We've increased funding for the primary election, which just occurred. Tax collecting office expenses are down. Assessing budget is down about $35,000 due to legal savings. Welfare budget is level funded, and the Conservation Commission budget is down $1,500. Legal budget is down about 29%. Fortunately, we were able to extend the Trans-Canada Tax Stabilization Agreement for 2 more years until the 2015 townwide reval occurs. However, we still have utility challenges from DirecTV, New England Electric, Fairpoint Public Service, and other residential and commercial tax assessment challenges. Police Department, including animal control, is up 4.9%, the default, and then the proposed is 2.85% over the default. That's comprised of the collective bargaining agreement, 2.5% wage increase, health insurance plan changes, firearm replacement costs are down $2,000, but we're adding 3 hours a week for the part-time office assistant in April, which will be shared with parking meter enforcement 50/50. And when we get to the parking meter department, we're adding time for on the street enforcement of the parking meter program. We've added an active shooter training program, more comprehensive technology computer service contract. The police department wants to seal coat the parking lot, resupply the first aid kits, replace supplies, ammunition, and dual band radio programming. The fire department default is up 0.92%, and then the proposed is up 0.42% over the default. This reflects reduced costs for training, data processing, electricity, sewer, and vehicle maintenance. We did level fund the heating costs, just uncertain as to the pellet boiler heating outcome for this year, although it's looking pretty good. And we did cut the heating costs the previous year in 2013 for the fire department, so we level funded that. They do have increased costs for uniforms, emergency reporting, contract, building maintenance, NFPA dues, turnout gear for call company recruits, and Tomar traffic signal equipment. And we did add a new line item for $1,000 for reimbursing area departments for brush fire calls, such as we experienced on the Girard Road wildfire this spring. Ambulance and dispatch services, the default is up 5.46%, and the proposed is up 4.6% over the default. What we're seeing in dispatch is the Grafton County had reduced their cost by $11,000 in 2013 due to participation by other towns in the county, but now they find that they have to increase it by $15,000, but that results in a net increase of $4,000 over the past 2 years. We've eliminated a dedicated radio line. The ambulance service contract with Calix has decreased by $1,267 and as the second year of their contract. Highway Department is up 0.37% default, and the proposed is down 0.25%. And this is for sidewalk, Highway Department sidewalk, streets, lights, and hydrants, rentals and bridges. Heating costs have been decreased due to the pellet boiler heating system. The backhoe was paid off, saving $15,399. And we've been very successful in the grinding of material. We've received a lot of fill from area projects, totaling about 7,000 yards that we're going to utilize in this year and next year's road improvement projects. Transfer station is up 1.9% default, and then the proposed default is down 1.09%. That's reflected in reduced training, telephone, water, sewer dues, equipment maintenance, shingle disposal, and transportation costs, but they are going to see an increase in fuel oil. They're not seeing the used motor oil coming into the facility that they used to, that they heat their facility with, so they actually have to buy heating oil now. They also have increased costs in printing receipts and free on-cost disposal. And a part-time staff position has been built into the 2014 budget. So you can see that from this chart that a large portion, almost 50% of the entire operating budget is wages and benefits for the 38 full-time and part-time positions in town. Debt service. We talked a little bit about this with the highway garage, but we're seeing a decline in debt service this year of 0.25%, and because it's a long-term contract, there's no change from the default to the proposed. This next chart we looked at briefly regarding the highway garage, but what What we're seeing from this year, from 2013 to 2014, we're going to see an $11,000 decrease in debt service in that we paid off the police headquarters outfitting the building. And then we talked about in 2015, we pay off, or this year we pay off the landfill closure and the fire department ladder truck, which will save $235,000 going into 2015. Outside board funds, the library and parks and recreation. The change in the default from last year is down 0.35%, and the proposed is up 4.1%. Looking at the library first, they're adding 5 more hours to their being open. They're seeing New Hampshire retirement increases, but they're decreasing their building maintenance expenses, increasing their book repair costs with memorial funds, but the overall increase in the library budget is 1.1%. Parks and Recreation is seeing an increase in fuel oils, groundkeeping, pool painting supplies, and recreational programming. They've decreased in their summer program for an overall increase of 5.9%. Oops, sorry. Enterprise funds, it's the Opera House, the Police Department, Special Outside Detail, parking meters, wastewater treatment plant. The Opera House is down 2.9%. The Police Department Outside Special Detail is up 3%. Parking meters is up 5.7%, and wastewater treatment plant is up 1.37%. But looking at the details of those, the Opera House, we're seeing the liability insurance decrease slightly. The Police Department Outside Detail, we had very high utilization in 2013, so we're seeing little budget change for 2014. And previously mentioned that the increase in the enforcement officer and the parking meters going from 20 to 30 hours a week, which adds 3 hours to the administrative staff. We did convert the Green Street lease into a loan last year, and the parking meter fund is paying that. And fees are being used to maintain meters and sidewalks and streets from the parking meter fund. On the wastewater treatment plant, Utility Partners has a contract with the town to operate that, and there's a 1% increase and a slight increase in the property insurance for that. So this next slide is a summary. In the gray area, we saw a 2013 budget of $6.40 for the estimated tax rate just for the operating budget. With the 2014 default, that would go to $6.59, and the proposed goes to $6.68. And you factor in some other war service credits and overlays. We are planning on seeing an increase in the taxable valuation in town too. We're expecting about a $5 million increase there. So the estimated tax rate for the operating budget will go from $6.84 to $7.03 for the default and $7.11 for the proposed. For a $153,000, $600 median home, that would estimate to be about $41.47. And here's a comparison of the town operating budget for last year with area towns. We're in the middle of the pack, which is a good thing. And I guess that is a quick review of the operating budget, and I'll be happy to try and answer any questions.
Good. Thank you, Fred. Questions?
I've got a question, which I think maybe could be directed to Parks and Recreation Commissioners, if any of them are here. The Parks and Recreation Department seem to have the largest percentage of increase in their budget, and I noticed that there are 4 petition warrant articles for the Parks and Recreation. So if somebody could possibly speak to what's going on there.
Brian Hadlock, is it on? Brian Hadlock, Parks Commissioner. Basically, the sole reason why our budget looks like it takes a big increase is because we have one of the smallest budgets in the town. One item that we did not put out as a warrant article this year that we decided that needed to go on into the budget was the repainting of the pool. With the budget cuts in the past years that were done and everything was restructured, pretty much all maintenance was cut out. Our pool now is at the fact of being down to seeing black lines that were used for racing probably 20 years ago. There is no paint left on the pool. So for maintenance purposes, we are having it painted. I don't have the exact figure, but that alone was a huge impact to our budget. Mike, do you know,
It's a,
or Brian, how much was it?
it's a $12,000 quote, and we budgeted half that.
Yeah, it's $12,000 to actually have it done. We budgeted half, and the other half is going to be coming out of the pool maintenance fund. And then the other warrant articles that we have later on, we can speak to later on, but they're all needed. Any other questions while I'm up here?
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any other questions? Questions on the budget? Ready for, go ahead.
Jean Dickerman, I just wanted to make a correction on the library. We're not being open 5 more hours a week. We're adding 5 hours of staff time.
Okay, thank you.
Mary Edick, is this close enough?
It is, I think so.
Good. I'd like to make a motion. I move that $2,139 be added to the town budget for the purpose of granting the hourly employees of the Littleton Public Library a 2.5% raise for the 2014 fiscal year.
Okay. You have that? Yeah, thank you.
I do.
Thank you.
Yep.
So we've heard this is an appropriate amendment. Do we have a second? Okay, there is a second. So appropriately, discussion is open, is permitted.
In November, I attended a BOS special meeting in the town offices, and the budget reports for the library and the Parks and Recs department were given by Karen Noyes. At that meeting, I learned that the library board of trustees had voted to not give the library hourly employees a 2.5% raise for 2014. I realize that they are the only employees of Littleton that are not being given the 2.5% raise. My motion is only for the library's hourly employees, not the library director. Also, the employees of the library have been cut 5 hours on their 40-hour week, and they have not been given those hours back. So they still are working a 35-hour week, and they have only been given 2 pay raises in the last 6 years. That's why I think this is very appropriate for this year. The library is used by every age group and every economic level in this town. I go in there and there's every walk of life of group of people using that library on a daily basis. And I think the biggest asset in the library is not the books, not the videos, no, it's the librarians. You can go in there, you can get help on how to download the New Hampshire library books. You can get help on computers. I know friends, neighbors who don't have a computer, either can't afford one and don't want one. They can go in there and use them. And the librarians are there to help. You can get help in research. And personally, the reason I enjoy books rather than a Kindle or whatever is I enjoy going in there. The librarians personally know my taste in books. And they can tell me what new books are on the shelves. So I think this 2.5% raise is a modest thank you to the library staff for their dedication. I hope everyone will vote for it. Thank you. How do you put this back? Ah, plan. Okay, good. Thank you.
Or give it to me.
My name is Dan. Are we going to be giving a modest 2.5% raise to the taxpayers who didn't get a raise also to make up for this 2.5% raise? There are many taxpayers who haven't gotten a raise this year or in previous years. So just think about that when you decide on that.
Okay.
Tom Hall. Speaking as a former library director for a couple of terms, I was part of that decision to forego the 2.5% raise. Part of it is a mindset that just because everybody goes with 2.5% doesn't mean that we should go with 2.5%. We struggle to work with the budget that we've had. The library has had several fairly severe budget cuts in the past few years. We do have a good staff. They have good jobs. They've got good benefits. If you look at one of those slides not too long ago, you'll realize that not only town as a business, but businesses in general, the biggest bite is payroll. And it becomes a huge bite when benefit packages, such as many of the employees in this town have, is considered as part of it. So we value our employees, but we are trying to run a budget that will make things work. We feel that they've got good jobs and they appreciate the good jobs, and we, for that reason, decided to forego the 2.5% this year. And I think that if you check what all the other 2.5% are, obviously we use the 2.5%, the town does, to try to help out non-union people. And I understand that to an extent, but the unions, through whatever negotiations we do with them, do represent wages with benefits that are more than fair in this town, I believe. If you look at a lot of the benefit packages, if you see a fellow that's earning $20 an hour, if he's got a family plan, take another $10 an hour and put it onto that, because you're paying for a $20,000 to $25,000 benefit package for that person. So considering all that and looking at a lot of people in this room that don't have those benefit packages and don't have that secure work all year long, these are some of the things we look at when we develop our budget. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Rudy Chelsea. I want to comment a little bit, about the operating budget at the time. The town manager really expressed it to all of us, citizens, a taxpayer of Littleton.
Out of order.
The
It's out of order. I'm not talking about the...
No, right. We're talking about the amendment, the merits of the amendment.
There was an amendment to give the
You
raise for the 2.5%
got to
raise.
decide on the amendment to the library before we can talk about anything else.
Okay. I was in regard, what the manager,
Yeah,
about the budget.
Yeah, okay.
I explained myself.
The amendment, unless you're getting to...
No, that's all right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion on the amendment?
Complicated.
Okay, are you ready for the question on the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Now, you know, that's close, but I think we ought to be sure. Those in favor, if you'd stand. Okay, shouldn't be a...
You make sure they hold up their cards.
Yeah, hold up the cards, please, yeah. Okay, you guys all set? All right, so you may be seated, and if you're voting no, you may stand, hold your card up. All right, you may be seated. Thank you. Okay, standing vote, 33, well, no 18, 33 yes. So therefore, the amendment is accepted. So become a part of the budget, so the 2,139. There is a caveat I think we have to mention, and that is the select board is not obligated, and I think you understand that. Obligated to, excuse me?
How much is the increase?
$2,139. Yeah, go ahead.
And I would just, Mary Edith again, and I would just ask that the select board honor the vote that's taken tonight. And I realize that you're not obligated, but I would just ask that you do that. Thank you very much.
Okay. So, are you ready for the question on the budget? So the amount,
Do you want the amount?
Yeah, please.
7933-163.
7933-163. Okay. So the budget as amended would be $7,933,63. Is that right?
163, yes.
163. Okay. Rather than $7,931,024.
Would you repeat that number again, please?
Which one?
It's the 7 million, it's the one that's instead of 7,931,000?
Okay, the one we were discussing was $7,931,024.
And that's been changed to?
To $7,933,163. So that's the amount that will go on the warrant for the March 11th election. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
Okay, the ayes have it, so we're up to Article 7.
Good evening. I'm going to Mary, your amendment was timely. I'm going to speak about the union contract. The collective bargaining agreement, Article 7, Board of Selectmen and AFSCME, to see if the town will vote to approve the cost item included in the 3-year collective bargaining agreement reached between the Board of Selectmen and the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, Council 93, Local 1348, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits at the current staffing level: 2014, $9,820, 2015, $6,211, 2016, $3,455. And further to raise and appropriate the sum of $9,820 for the current fiscal year, such sum representing the additional costs attributed to the increase in salaries and benefits over those of the appropriations at current staffing levels paid in the prior fiscal year. The tax impact is $0.01. It's $0.01. Recommended by Selectmen 3-0, recommended by the Budget Committee 6-1. I would make a motion to place this on the floor for discussion. I need a second.
Second? Okay.
Thank you.
Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we can discuss it.
Thank you. I'm going to stay with this slide for a while because I'd like to walk through parts of the contract which actually speak to the costs, and then we'll move to the other slides that you have in your packet as well. First of all, I want to tell you that there are 16 employees that are represented in this negotiated agreement. There are 7 Highway Department employees, 6 firemen, or 6 fire employees, and 3 transfer station employees. There's 11 positions involved here, 5 at the Highway Department, 4 at the fire station, and 2 at the transfer station. This negotiated agreement is coming in at $11,318 lower than the 2013 proposal. It's primarily because of the shifting in the health benefits, which I'll talk to or speak to in a minute. The estimated first-year cost increase is not $9,820. It's $17,748.62. There's 4 items that make up this cost increase. The first one is the wage scale adjustments. Now, with these 11 positions, they're all on a wage scale. That wage scale has 12 steps to it. And in this first year, we're not talking about giving a step increase. We're talking or speaking to the issue of making a wage, we're making a wage scale adjustment. So the scale is adjusting, not a step movement on the scale. And that comes to $12,629. And let me give you 3 quick examples. A recycling attendant, first step, new employee, is currently starting at $14.27 an hour. That would go to $14.56 an hour on a 2% adjustment. A firefighter would go from $16.81 to $17.15, and a truck driver at the Highway Department would go from $13.50 to $13.77. So it's a 29-cent increase, a 34-cent increase, and a 27 increase. Then in the third year of the contract, that happens again. They'd go from the $14.56 for the attendant to $14.85, $17.15 for the fireman to $17.49, and then $13.77 to $14.05 for the truck driver. So we're talking in the first year of just a wage scale adjustment, and that comes to $12,629. Highway on-call, health insurance buyout. If you work for the town of Littleton and you don't take our insurance and you can verify that you have insurance, we would currently pay you $5,746. And we're reducing that in the contract to $5,000. In the second year would go to $4,000, and in the third year would go to $3,000. But right now there is a health insurance buyout, which is because somebody is going off of a plan and onto the buyout, and the cost is actually $3,400 $437. So you add that to the $12,000 for the 2% adjustment, $3,437 for the health insurance buyout. We have a highway on-call stipend that we're moving from $10 a day to $25 a day, and I'll speak to that a little bit later. That comes to $1,201.96. And then highway department people who need a CDL license for driving a heavy truck, we will pay them the difference between their current license cost and getting the CDL license, and that comes to $480. If you add up those four figures, it comes to the $17,748.62. Now we have two items that brings it back down to the $9,820 that you see on the screen. Our policy change, our health insurance policy is going from a $10 copay. This is the base policy that the town offers. We have 3 plans. This is the base plan that we offer the employees in this new contract. It goes from a $10 copay to a $20 copay. It goes from no deductibles to $250, $500, and $750. So it's a more expensive contract for the employees from the standpoint of money that they have to pay out if they need to use their insurance, but it drops the premium. And that drop for the town as the employer is $7,288.11. So that's the big one. There's another plan, and that plan is the first plan is a Matthew Thornton Blue plan, and the second plan, the alternate plan, is a Blue Cross 2-tier plan. It's a $10 copay, and there's no deductibles. The premium on that policy is obviously a lot more because you have to pay more for it because the insurance company is going to be paying out a lot more for people that take that plan. But the base plan now is a less expensive plan for the employer, but a somewhat more expensive plan for the employee if they need to use it, but their premiums go down substantially as well. The premium sharing in this new contract will be 2.5% the first year, 7.5% the second year, and 12.5% the third year. The plan for drugs is a 10-20-45 on the current plan, and will be on the new plans as well. We also offer a Luminous plan, which is a very high premium, a very high deductible plan, very low premium, and that's a third plan that's offered to the employees if they want to take it. So from the $17,748, you can take $7,288 right off the top because we've changed the insurance, the health insurance. And the other cost reduction that factors in here is we negotiated the firemen who are on call on Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's currently receive double time and a half for being on call those days. We have negotiated out the New Year's coverage so that we save basically $641 on taking one of those holidays off of the double time and a half. You add that to the 7,288, and that brings it up, or brings the whole thing down to $9,820. I wanted to walk through this because the first year is just an adjustment to the scale itself. The second year is a 2.5% step increase, so people would move on step. If they're on step 3, they'd go to step 4. Whatever step they're on, there would be an adjustment of 2.5%. And then the third year, it's again a scale adjustment of 2%. That was a big item for us to negotiate, and I wanted to touch on 2 more briefly, and then we can move the slides. We've negotiated a weekly, hourly, I should say, a definition of a working week of 48 hours versus 42 that the firemen are currently working. And we have earned time reduced for all departments. But I have to tell you, because this is sort of a controversy here in town regarding what the firemen carry for earned time, I did a 29 town comparison in terms of the time you earn to take off, either sick time or vacation time, but we call it earned time now. And the fire department New employees, as of April 1st, will be reduced by 16 hours of earned time, or 18% of what the current employees make. And in terms of carryover time, the fire department will be reduced by 135 hours for new employees as of April 1st, and highway and transfer by 72 hours for people that are hired as of April 1st. But I want to go back to the fire station for a minute, to the employees, because there's a sense in town that the firemen accumulate a lot of time. Yeah. I'm sorry. Okay. I looked at the 29 communities that have a negotiated agreement, and in the first 6 months, in Littleton, firemen earned 7.5 days. That's during their first year. And of the 29 towns, we're 21st, lowest. If you're here 10 years, you have 24 days that you've earned. We're 25th lowest of 29 towns in terms of earned time. And if you're here 20 years, you have 27 days that you've earned, and we are 23rd lowest. So we are in the lowest third of the 29 negotiated agreements in terms of earned time. And you just need to know that as we get into other slides. That's basically what I wanted to say before we move on to the next slide. You want to do that, Fred? Fire department employees, and I'll just touch on this briefly. The regular work week for the fire department employees will be 48 hours per week at straight time if funds are available. This is at straight time. I'll speak later to the federal guideline about 53 hours that some people feel as if that's a state law. It's not. No overtime will be paid for regular hours worked until 48 hours are worked. Note that the first 3 hours of callback are at straight time as well. And then number 3, the chief or his designee will be able to cover shifts with more flexibility following certain procedures. I want to refer to the wording in the contract. This was the last thing that we negotiated, and it's important for people who understand what some of the issues are to hear this. When not enough staff officers and full-time fire personnel are available to fully cover a shift, then additional coverage will be provided by this following sequence. Number 1, offer it to staff officers and full-time fire personnel. Number 2, offer it to part-time personnel who meet the standards in subsection 2 above, which has to do with requirements and certifications. Number 3, offer it to call company personnel who meet the standards in subsection 2A. And then above, number 4, require the least senior staff officers and full-time fire personnel to perform the work as overtime in accordance with Section C. So if the first 3 call layers don't respond, then we would be going to junior personnel, and that would be on an overtime basis. In extending to 48 hours, we weren't looking to add overtime. We were looking to change the weekly schedule from 42 hours to 48, and to do the 48 hours into the Saturday and Sunday hours, which I'll speak to in a minute. Next slide is Highway Department employees. From November through April, only 1 employee will be able to opt out from being on call. This was part of the negotiated agreement. Daily on-call hours during the week is 6:30 a.m. on one day to 6:30 the next morning. That was something that we just needed to verify. The current summer stipend of $10 a day for 2 employees from April to October will be changed to $25 per day for 1 employee, which I spoke to before. Pager calls must be returned within 10 minutes. And the $500 stipend for New Hampshire Public Works Academy 1 and 2 has been eliminated, which goes back to part of the $11,000 savings that I spoke to initially. Highway transfer station and fire department employees. Town manager is able to hire employees up to step 4 and place them at the leave time accrual rate that they were at when they left. Memorial Day is now defined as Memorial Day observed on Monday. That was just a point of clarification that we had to do. Leave time maximum accruals for new employees have decreased, as I mentioned. Employees will only be paid double time and a half for work performed on Thanksgiving and Christmas. The driver health insurance plan, it's the base plan, will be changed from a Blue Cross two-tier plan with no deductible to an HMO plan with $250, $500 two-person and $750 family plan. Co-payment amounts doubled to $20 per visit. The employees will be paying 2.5% of the premium the first year, 7.5% the second, and 12.5% the third, as I mentioned. The buyout for people who are insured elsewhere is going from $5,743 to $5,000 the first year, $4,000 the second, and $3,000 the third. Wage increase schedules are 2% for the first year, no step, as I explained, 2.5% step increase the second year, and 2% no step on the third year. All employees who require a CDL for their position will receive the difference between the CDL and the regular license fee. So very basically, again, this last slide, changes in union contract. You've got this in your handout, so maybe you can just follow through. We've gone through all of these. The summary of cost changes for the negotiated agreement. There's 16 employees. First year is a 2% increase. It comes to $12,630. Second year, $20,388. Third year, $18,579. That adds up to $51,597 over 3 years. Averages about $17,199 a year. The average increase over the 3 years is 2.16%. If you count the year that they did not get a pay increase because the contract was not approved last year, it comes to 1.67%. The health insurance savings is $7,289 the first year, $12,256 the second year. I'm sorry, $562 the second year, and $13,509 the third year. And then the summer on-call stipend is a cost of $1,201. The fire department holiday savings, as I said before, is $641. The CDL license is an add-on cost of $480. So the total cost to taxpayers over 2013 for the first year is $9,820. Second year, $6,211. Third year, $3,455. The median home cost comparison is $1.97. First year, $125 and 69 cents. I believe that's all I have. Any questions? Linda.
Linda Moore, can you just clarify? You're saying are they picking up 2.5% of the insurance cost the first year and then moving to 7.5% and then moving to 12.5%?
Yes. Yeah.
So the employee is increasing their share?
For every year for the 3 years.
That's what I wondered. It sounded like there would be a savings on the premium to you, but you wouldn't know what the cost of the premium is 3 years out, correct?
Right. These are all estimates at this point. Except for the first year. We know the cost for the first year, but we don't know the second or third. But we do know what the percentages would be.
Bruce Hadlock, are you still using Finance for the health insurance products?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever, well, first of all, they just lost a lawsuit back to the public in the state of New Hampshire to the tune of close to $50 million that they overcharged, and you're still using them? I don't sell health insurance, but it doesn't seem like you should be going back to these people. Then the same people that you're going back to took it to court with your own money and fought it. If I were you, I'd be getting out of finance. All these public employees also, in turn, got a big check back out of it because a lot of it was their own money. Now, if I were negotiating, I would be paying all town's insurance on it, as far as that goes, and having no contributions by any of the people in here. And the people should take less money. You'd get a better deal out of it and not having to have them pay. When they gotta take money out of their pocket, out of the thing and pay, they gotta pay taxes on this thing on it, and income taxes, and everything else on it. So it's not a real good deal of what you're dealing with. I got one other question on it, is what are you doing with the retirement programs relative to this?
Well, in terms of the retirement, contributions are set by the state, so we're sort of victim to that decision.
This is part of what you're dealing with. If you're talking about this, you got to be talking retirement because it affects all of our pockets, big deals on what that is, and it continually affects us on it because the state of New Hampshire keeps lowering it on it as to what they're going to pay, putting it back to the townspeople. But I'm not in favor of what I think you're done. I honestly think that the employees would get a better deal if they didn't pay anything and they took less money. And it would save the community money besides. It's not a good thing to be working what you're dealing with. And again, I would be looking someplace else other than Primex that overcharged every town in the state of New Hampshire by $50 million. And you're still using it, it doesn't add up. Thank you.
Dan, on the on page 40, the highway transfer station and fire department employees, you're going to bring them back, people who quit, you're going to bring them back at step 4. I wanted to know, will the rehires be subject to new retirement rules and regulations for new employees? Or will they go back to the better things that they had when they came on?
Retirement isn't part of a negotiated agreement because we're under the state retirement plan, so it's not in the negotiated agreement per se.
No, I believe I understand, but what I'm saying is when you rehire somebody, you may have hired somebody the year before who comes in under new rules and regulations. Mm-hmm. Will the rehire come back under these new rules and regulations?
Yes. If this passes, these are the rules in this contract.
Okay. I want to say one thing. Some of the cost cutting for the taxpayer was pretty darn good. I like that. But because the majority of the things is a cost to the taxpayer, I can't support that. If more of the savings to the taxpayer were there, it'd be supportable.
Okay, are you ready for the question? All right, question is, are you in favor of placing Article 7 on the ballot for March 11th? Say aye. Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
And the ayes have it, so we'll move on to Article 8.
Article 8, special town meeting. Shall the town of Littleton, if Article 7 is defeated, authorize the governing body to call one special meeting at its option to address Article 7 cost items only. Cost is included in the operating budget. The estimated cost is about $1,500 to have a special election. Tax impact is zero, but there is a $1,500 charge here. It's off of money that we already have, so there is a tax impact, but not specifically current. Recommended by the selectmen 3-0. The budget committee did not vote on non-articles. Oh, and I removed this discussed on the floor. Do I have a second? Thank you.
In favor, aye? Just to discuss it.
Thank
Yes?
you.
No?
Okay, I'm sorry. Is there any discussion or questions?
Dan, you said, or it says here that this cost is included in the operating budget. If this doesn't take place, you and you said it was going to cost $1,500 to hold a special thing. If it doesn't take place, since the $1,500 is in the operating budget, what happens to that $1,500?
At the end of the year, if it's not spent on this and there's not have to be spent on anything else, it stays in the operating funds.
Ready for the question? All those in favor of placing Article 8 on the ballot for March 11th, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, the ayes have it.
Article 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $34,075 for the purpose of expanding hours of staff coverage at the fire station for up to 18 additional hours per week during the weekends. The actual cost for the expanded hours is $38,400. With expanded coverage, there will be a reduction in overtime expenses and call-out costs of $4,325. The tax impact is 4.5 cents. The recommendation by the selectmen is 3-0. Not recommended by the Budget Committee, 6-2. I make a motion that we place this for discussion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second, okay.
Thank you.
Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it, sir. Go ahead.
Do I have any questions or discussion?
Yeah, Ron Bolt. I think most people will remember the history of this. 2011, big cut to the budget at the deliberative session resulted, among other things, with 2 full-time firefighters being laid off. There's a lot of consternation about that decision, concern about the lack of firehouse being manned on the weekends. What followed from there was a town-wide referendum, which indicated very strong support for an increased level of service at the fire station on the weekends. And what followed after that was the Board of Selectmen looked at various options. I think there were 11 or 12 options that were looked at. One of the complaints about the referendum was it was just as straightforward, do you want more or less for the same amount of service at the three departments, and that there was never any dollar figures associated with that. So today you have the dollar figure to go with one of those levels of services. As I understand it, if you take that $34,000 and do it on a 12-month basis, it's about $45,000 for a full year. So that would be the total cost for 1 full year of doing this. So I did some little calculations on that. And so for 18 additional hours of coverage every weekend for 52 weeks of the year, that's 936 hours where there will be somebody manning the firehouse that we don't have now. And I took that $45,000 and brought that out to what that would cost for the average homeowner of a $150,000 house. It's $9. So $9 for 936 hours of coverage. That sounds like a very big bargain to me. And I was very distressed when I saw that the Budget Committee is not recommending this. And I was wondering if there's anybody here from the Budget Committee who could explain their rationale for not supporting this article.
Dan, I'm on the Budget Committee. I can only speak for myself. I can't speak for anybody else on the Budget Committee. Back in 2011, we had the taxpayer revolt, that's what I call it, and it was decided that we were going to reduce our staff. I don't really trust town-wide referendums. I don't even trust the majority of voters because that's not the majority of the town voting. It's just the majority of the people who do vote. That's the way I look at it. That's why I voted no on it. That explains it.
anymore. I am on the budget committee. And I did have a fire on a Saturday night, which was during the volunteer fire time. And I was very happy with the services I received. I think we should leave them the way they are. Thank you.
He's also on the committee.
Yes, we am also on the budget committee. I would ask the administration to check with the chairman. I'm not sure that was our vote. And I'm really sure that was not our vote on Article 13.
To the judge, I'm also a member of the budget committee, and I agree that the fire station, not just to show out a Saturday, it is, 18 hours, additional hours per week. But I personally believe that the people in Littleton, you should know the service that the fire people do for all of us, especially, in this particular time, in winter time. I believe that, the money is well spent, and about the years.
Anyone else have a question or a comment?
I'm Regina Bowler. I'm a registered voter and I'm married to a firefighter. I will say I personally feel great distress when I leave alone the pager when it opens up, and I hear repeated calls for the call company between 1 p.m. on Saturday afternoon and 7 a.m. on Monday morning, because it is my neighbors, my fellow residents who are waiting for firefighters to respond, and there is no one at the fire station answering that call until the second or third page sentence.
Thank you. I wanted to make one other comment, if I could. Ron, did you have something you wanted to say? Okay. I spent part of the summer looking at all 29 contracts that are posted on the New Hampshire government site.